I'd like to introduce the Associate Director for Training and Education and Professor within the NCI-Designated Cancer Center. Dr. Kevin Yip is also the Scientific Director for the Bioinformatics Shared Resource, as well as the Interim Director for the Center for Data Sciences. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Yip.
Hi, everyone. So give me a second. I'm trying to find a way to turn on my video. Okay, I think you can see me now. Yeah, thank you for the introduction, Nisha. So as Nisha mentioned, I am the Associate Director of Training and Education of the Cancer Center. And you have previously heard from Dr. Craig Hauser that we have different shared resources within the Institute. One of them is bioinformatics. I'm also advising that core. So hopefully I can provide you some information about different things within the Cancer Center. So I guess the first thing I want to cover is what it means by NCI-Designated Cancer Center. So actually, I think many of you know that NCI is National Cancer Institute. It is the institute within National Institute of Health, or NIH, that is focusing on cancer. And NCI designates different cancer centers across the nation as research centers. And this is the highest kind of recognition for an institute for doing cancer research. And there are different types, depending on whether you have a clinical component. So if you have a hospital and doing mostly clinical study, that would be a clinical cancer center. If you have both clinical and more basic research, that will be a comprehensive center. And there are only a few that are considered basic cancer centers, and SVP has one of them. So I highlight here, and very close, we have another one. So that is really a very special thing about San Diego. So because of that, we don't have a hospital, we do basic research, and we also do translational research, and all the way to preclinical studies. So our mission, as put by our interim director, Dr. Cosimo Comiso, is that we want to do impactful translational and multidisciplinary research. The goal is to help diagnose and also treat cancer. So I highlight two words here that I believe to be super important and characteristic of our cancer center. The first one is translational. We are doing basic research, understanding basic mechanisms, which I'll tell you more in a later slide. But at the same time, we always try to translate this knowledge into something useful, right, in the clinic in the long term. And in order to do that, we really need multidisciplinary research projects. So different labs, different people work together. And that is the fun part, because you get to know a lot of new things that are like outside your comfort zone, right? And that is made possible because of the structure that we have, that people can very easily collaborate with each other. So talking about the Cancer Center, actually, it actually comprises around 80% of the whole SVP faculty. So most of the labs are affiliated with the Cancer Center. Maybe they're focusing on cancer, or they may be doing both cancer and some other types of research, right? And why is that? I'll also tell you later. And that is, again, a characteristic, so that most of the people here are involved in cancer research. So I just want to use a few stories to give you a feeling of the different kinds of research that we have related to cancer in the Institute. And they come with very different flavors. So these are from our Institute website, from the news page. You can also find these stories online. So one story on the upper left corner is by Dr. Max D'Angelo. So he studies nuclear pore complexes. So that is something at the very basic mechanistic level, right? We try to understand how these complexes are actually helping do regulation, and when they are dysregulated in cancer or in other diseases, what will happen, right? So you can imagine this is very basic research. On the top right side, I'm showing Dr. Peter Adams. So he is an expert in aging. in the context of cancer, he's very interested in understanding why aging is a major risk factor for cancer, right? So how the cells in young and old are different from each other, and why is that actually a risk, right? So this very important topic. Lower left corner, I'm showing Dr. Edward Sergenko. So he is in the private center. He's doing a lot of drug screening studies. And in this particular story that I'm showing here, he is trying to develop drugs to tackle breast cancer, right? And finally, on the lower right side, this is a study from Dr. Sanju Sinha. So he is an AI expert trying to use a lot of data mining and machine learning to see whether we can predict drug response of patients, right, by profiling the gene expression. So as you can see, all these projects are related to cancer, but they're actually very different, from super basic level mechanistic studies to thinking about like aging and then drug development to data science, right? So we have all different kinds of things happening in the institute. So in terms of the organization, our cancer center currently has 2 research programs. So all the labs are belonging to one of the 2, or some may belong to both. So one program is Cancer Genome and Epigenetics program. I'll tell you more about this program later. And the second one is Cancer Metabolism and Microenvironment. I'll also tell you more. Okay, so the first one, Cancer Genome and Epigenetics. It is currently led by Dr. Peter Adams that I introduced earlier. So using this quote from him, which is a very accurate description of what this program is about. So essentially, this is studying the genome and the epigenome of cancer cells, right? So DNA and the chromatin, DNA modification, all different kinds of things together, right? So, and we want to understand how these things actually would lead to cancer growth if they are dysregulated. So once we understand that, then we have a better idea of what the cancer cells are doing, and maybe potentially we can try to find ways to tackle that to develop new treatments, right? So that is more or less what this program is about. And here you can see the members of the program. As you can see, there are quite a lot of labs involved in this program. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I just want to highlight a few cancer types that this program studies. Actually, different labs study different cancer types, so the whole list will be more than these. But I just want to show some of the common ones worked by multiple labs. So blood cancer is one of our focuses, especially different kinds of leukemias, for example, acute myeloid leukemia, okay? And then brain cancer is another focus. Several labs are working on that, especially glioblastoma. And then we have breast cancer projects. We have a few labs studying liver cancer, especially hepatocellular carcinoma. And finally, not exactly cancer type, but for cancers in younger people, the pediatric cancers, we have very strong interest in this topic. Okay, again, multiple labs are working on that. And then moving on to the second program, it is the Cancer Metabolism and Microenvironment program. It is led by Dr. Brooke Emmerling. And again, I'm using her quote to describe this program. So of course, everything is related, right? So from DNA to chromatin to protein and everything. But this program is focusing on yet another level. So essentially the tumor ecosystem. So what that means is metabolism, signal transduction, tumor stromal, crosstalk, and also the molecular machines, right? So all different kinds of interactions. So how can we understand what they are doing in normal situations and how are they going wrong in cancer cells or cancer environment, right? And then again, how can we make use of our findings to find fixes to the problem, right? So this is what this program is trying to do. Just like the first program, in this second program, we also have a lot of labs involved, right? So they are also working on some of the same cancer types as the first program, breast cancer, liver cancer. But one of the key focuses in this program is another cancer type, pancreatic cancer, especially pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma, right? So we have a few labs working on this topic and they study different aspects, right? So again, as I mentioned, this is a highly collaborative environment, right? So different labs, they contribute different kinds of expertise to study the same thing together so that we can do more than doing them individually. So in addition to these two programs, I also want to mention a few cross-cutting themes that actually a large number of labs, not limited to one program, right? But multiple programs all work together. I've already mentioned aging before to you, right? So this is actually a very important theme that SBP is focusing on right now. Because as you know, aging is the major risk factor, not only for cancer, but for many other diseases, neurodegenerative diseases, and so on, right? Chronic diseases. So we really want to understand why. And when we understand why, is there anything that we can do, right? So that is really, no matter what kind of disease that you're studying, like very likely you'll touch on this topic. Another cross-cutting theme is immunity and inflammation. So we all know that this is our natural system, which can be very good. I mean, for example, if we get infected, of course, we need the immunity, we need to get inflamed in order to respond. But long-term can actually cause problems. For example, may increase cancer risk. So how can we maintain a good balance? Are there different types of inflammation? How can we actually make use of our findings in developing cures? You may have heard about immunotherapies and so on, right? This is another very important cross-cutting theme that we have at SBP. And finally, as I mentioned in one of our stories before, we are developing more and more on data science. We have several labs and we are going to have even more working on data science, right? So how can we make use of the very large amount of data in the public domain and integrate them with the data we generate within the institute so that we can get a bigger picture, right? And propose a lot of hypotheses and then follow up experimentally. So that is what we are trying to establish and further develop in the institute right now. So in order to do all these things, we need a lot of support. So you can imagine if you work in one of the projects at SBP, trying to do things that touch on many of the aspects I talked about before. It's impossible for you to do everything, right? So you don't need to worry about that. As described by Dr. Craig Hauser before, we actually have a lot of shared resources. So for example, if you are a wet lab person, but you are doing high throughput experiments, you need to analyze the data, right? Of course, you can learn. You are very welcome to learn, and we have training programs. But on the other hand, if you want to focus on your experiments, we actually have the bioinformatics share facility to actually do that, right? So, okay, so we can actually do more than what you're familiar with. That's the key point. And then in order to provide training, I just want to mention a few things. So Epicenter, Dr. Michael Jackson has introduced before. Maybe I don't repeat that. So for training, we have a lot of seminars on many different topics, and then we invite speakers that are well experts in the different topics. So every year we select the most important topics, right, and invite speakers. These are some of the recent speakers that I just want to list to let you get a feeling of how it looks like. And then, as I mentioned before, one good thing about San Diego is that we have several world-class institutes very nearby. So we organize a lot of symposia, meetings, and so on. So we have a unique opportunity to join many of them very easily. Okay.